In the next 20 minutes, I will try my best to give you a bit of a general idea of what is happening in China and be as specific as possible to give you some idea as how things are turning out for music companies, both in terms of service company as well as content providers. First of all, let me give you some specific numbers about the promise of the Chinese market, basically the wow factor. We have over 450 million internet users in China and over 800 million, probably now close to 900 million as we speak, mobile users in China. So, but obviously that is with the background of 1.3 billion people. So even though we have hundreds of million users, digital users, there's still a lot of room for further growth. But more importantly, people are actually spending in China in the digital sectors. To give you an example, just for myself, a year ago, I've never spent 1 cent over the internet in China. But today, my family, my wife and I, we spent probably on a monthly basis, more than 30% of our monthly spending is over internet. And that's not just for me. I can safely say that probably 30 to 40% of the workforce within my company is like that. So that's just giving you some idea as to how big the market is. And more importantly, these are not just numbers. These are really a solid base for commercial consumptions. More importantly, what is the market for music, digital music in China? Out of those over 800, nearly 900 million mobile users and 450 internet users, research from local data companies has shown that consumers have actually spent over 2.7 billion US dollars in 2009. So that's numbers for 2009. So piracy aside, as Nara had mentioned, over 85% of the music consumed in China, in the China market are actually through pirated channels. But piracy aside, if we just look at digital, people spend over 2.7, nearly 2.8 billion US dollars through internet and mobile networks. But more importantly, out of those 2.8 billion US dollars, only somewhere around 30 to 40 million US dollars went to the hands of music companies, that being the labels, including the likes of Universal, EMI, etc., and local publishing houses, as well as societies. So compare that $40 million to 2.74 billion US dollars, that's only a percentage of between 1.5 to 1.7%. So this really is a very marginal or nominal percentage of the total pie people actually spend. That actually goes to the hands of music industry as a whole, content industry. Why is that gap? If I have to put two reasons, there are really two. First of all, obviously, it is to do with piracy. Secondly, it's more to do with the market dynamics in China. Piracy has always been a problem, not only obviously in China, but also elsewhere around the world. But even though today piracy, I believe, still is the main problem, which if we are to put a number on this, it's 85% of the problem. However, contrary to some of you might think, there is a legal framework in China that protects IP and protects music. For instance, for our company, over the last 4 years, we have launched 9 legal cases against 7 different companies. out of those 7 companies, 5 of them are US listcos, basically listed in the United States, either on the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange. Yes, those cases has lasted over a year and a half, maybe, but at the end of the day, on average, each one of these cases, we were awarded a penalty of 60,000 RMB, which is not a lot. It's probably $10,000 for each one of these cases. And that accounts for about between 5,000 to 7,000 RMBs for every single sum that we have put against these companies. That's about 1,000 US dollars for every single sum. Now that, obviously, these numbers are nothing to write home about. But what I'm trying to say is there is a legal framework in place that can help you to protect your IP in China if you really put your mind to it. But the other number I can share with you is that out of those 7 companies, 5 of those companies eventually did sign licensing contract with us. And these, accumulatively, these contracts are worth over 3 million RMBs. And these contracts are rolling, so it will get renewed every year as we go forward. So I think here, what I'm trying to say is this is a very, very tough world that we live in when it comes to fighting piracy in China. But if you put your effort to it, things will happen. And increasingly, as I will demonstrate to you later on, more and more positive changes will take place in China. The second reason I mentioned earlier on about the disparities between 30 million and the 2.75 billion US dollar is the market dynamics. And that dynamics is something I refer to as a dog-eat-dog world. Basically, it really is a bit of a jungle there in China. The reason is that most of the labels, music labels, be it international or local, are more than willing to undercut one another in order to try to land the next big hit. One example I can share with you is that, for example, we, in our market space, we represent more than 50% of the local, more than 50 local labels in China. And in one of those cases where we had prepared and was about to launch a case against a company called Baidu, which is the largest search engine in China, that label company actually came back to us and asked us to arrest that case. We were about to launch a case to sue Baidu for probably 2 to 5 million RMBs. But whilst we're doing all the preparation work, Baidu went behind us and talked to that label company and convinced them to accept somewhere, I don't know, my guess is somewhere around 2 million RMB settlement on the side to basically put away that case. Now, we didn't really argue about that, and more importantly, I think the reason I'm telling you about this case is just to give you a sense of what is going on in China in terms of everyday dealings with these service providers, these access points like Baidu. The reasons we didn't argue is that we really understand that it is very, very hard for labels, especially the local Chinese labels, to make a living over there in China. So that's the market dynamics that we have in China. So having said all that, how can we go about building values for IP in China? Is it still possible? In short, I believe it is. The way to do it is focus on two things. One, you have to have a licensing strategy that is very, very firm, yet very, very open-minded. Okay, that probably sounded contradictory in terms. By firm, I really mean that when you license to the service providers like in the likes of Google and Sina in China, you have to take a stance that you only work with people who respect IP. And you should never prepare to work with anyone who has been pirating your content left, right, and center, and never even trying to negotiate with you about the actual business terms. There are many companies like that in China, and particularly the company I mentioned earlier, Baidu. It is one of the largest search engines in the world. It occupies 70% of the market share in China. But in our years of dealing with them, they have never once came forward even trying to understand or trying to sign license from any of the labels. So that's what I mean. You have to be very, very firm towards a company like that. Otherwise, what would happen is that, for example, here I have to give you a bit more details. What would happen in contract or licensing negotiation was that they would go and spread rumors in the market and tell everybody that they are now signing deals with all these different labels. And given the dynamics I have mentioned earlier, a lot of small labels would then be very worried that they might be left out. So that kind of rumors will put pressure on these companies to very quickly sign some very shaky deals with that company. So basically, the values of music and IP will get further diluted as we go along. So that's why it is extremely important that in a market that is as dynamic as China, when it comes to licensing, you have to have a bottom line, which is never to license. It's almost like you should never negotiate with a terrorist. It runs the same analogy. The second thing is that, as I said, you have to be extremely open-minded. By that, I mean when it comes to licensing, we have to entertain offers that's structured as per download, subscription-based, free ad-based, direct, indirect through channels, every possible avenues. The reason is that internet applications are coming out every day. So the latest trend in music apps in China today is quite different from it was 2 years ago. So by the time people figure out and trying to have a very comprehensive licensing plan and contract in place, the market dynamics probably has changed. So it is very important for us to, first of all, obviously trying to understand the technology and application as well as the business that is behind these applications. Secondly, to a certain extent, you do have to take a bit of a leap of faith in cooperating with some of the unknown applications as well as entities. Because it's very important for us to be in the game as opposed to be a bystander and watch and try to understand from the sidelines. And I can assure you that will never happen. And lastly, I think another specific suggestions I would give to people who is thinking about going to China and thinking about licensing their content is that you do really have to invest in IP protections. By that, I mean, for example, I don't know what's the you know, the OPEX is like for the major labels. I would imagine probably between 5, maybe even the best I can think of is probably 10% of their annual spendings is to do with IP protection. Now that dynamics has changed completely when it comes to the digital sector in China particularly. I don't know about elsewhere, but definitely in China. One example I can give you, I can share with you is that over the last 10 years, one of the major sector that has experienced tremendous growth is online gaming. They generate over tens and probably even hundreds of million US dollars every year in profit, not just in revenue, in profit. And it probably doesn't show publicly in their financial statements, but I can assure you these companies spend as much as 20%, maybe even 30% in protecting their IP. To the extent, I have a friend who runs and owns such a company. And the other day I was talking to him, and what he told me even amazed me was that he, as the CEO and the majority shareholder of the company, cannot get a free account in his own game. That is the extent to which they protect their IP. It's a whole new level compared to what we do with music. And that's what you need to do with trying to marketing a product like music or movies in the digital sector, I believe, going forward. And that will have to be a long-term investment. It's not a one-off for the next 2 years, let's spend 100 million on IP protection and marketing. No, it is an ongoing process. Another anecdote I can give you is that in that company, they have probably over 1,000 engineers. They probably recruit 100 computer scientists to their company every month. For orientation, all of these guys will be invited to a room where they will be given lectures by local police officers to warn them that if they do steal from the company or if they do provide loopholes within their computer systems, they will be jailed, arrested, and basically messed up for the rest of their life. So that's just how it is happening for, I don't know how much analogy there is between game and music, but I think it's same in that they are all selling something through a virtual network, something that is not physical, and all the transaction is going on through the internet. The other thing, obviously, that's investing in IP protection is for ourselves. But more importantly, it is also for helping the service providers that license, who actually do pay for license fees. It is extremely important that we have to do anything and everything we can in order to support them to grow their business. So finally, how positive am I about the future of digital music? Given that we only have 1.5% of the 2.8 billion, I can only say I'm very positive. Because obviously, first of all, we can't do any worse. So there's only room for growth. But more importantly, over the last 4 months, in fact, over the last 2 years, we have put in forward to the Ministry of Culture in China over a list of 500 companies that we believe are really pioneering music. And it so happened over the last 4 months, somewhere around 230 to 240 of these companies were shut down by the MOC, including the likes of Coco C, ST520, These are pretty traffic-heavy sites. And more importantly, a new set of laws has been introduced, basically stating that websites in China who are found to be guilty of engaging serious piracies, by that they define as we can demonstrate that they are generating revenues over 50,000 RMBs, will be ordered to either pay a hefty penalty, obviously the hefty is by Chinese standard, or ordered to be closed. Those who are responsible personally, basically as a legal person of that entity, will potentially even be jailed. So these are very, very stringent measures. And that has put pressures on numerous pirate sites, including the likes of there's one notoriously famous B2B site called wa3.cn. And the kind of music they offer is as comprehensive and more updated than Spotify in Europe. They have recently, in the last 2 months, announced that they will disable their music and movie links in fear of these new regulations. Now, these I do not want to mislead people to think that it's all going to be beautiful sunshine tomorrow in China. These are still very small sites compared to the likes of Baidu. They are still very large corporations of financial who are extremely well supported financially, that runs commercial operations that are pirating music in a much, much bigger scale. So we still have a very, very long way to go. But more importantly, there are new things coming in our favor. That being, there will be, I believe there will be the next Google coming in the next few years. And there will be a new Chinese PayPal, a PayPal that will be launched in China in a massive scale, which will help people pay for music. And there's already talk about 4G networks, and I've seen next generation handsets that has been developed in Shenzhen. As I was talking to some of you in the bar last night, a typical Android phone that you might have in your hands today probably costs you $500 US, but they now, I've already seen them, they probably only cost $50 to $80 to make in Shenzhen, and they will appear in the marketplace everywhere in the world by the end of this year. So all of these things, I believe, will be even bigger than the Baidus. And every one of these companies, I believe, will want to have something to do with music. So even though those pirates occupies more than 90% of what we're supposed to have, but by nature, by the open nature of internet, I think new applications and companies will become more and more IP aware, purely because it makes sense for them commercially. So if we are to embrace these technologies as opposed to trying to fight against it, I believe we have every reasons to benefit from it as much as the pirates. So I believe the future is going to be quite positive. Thank you very much.